Astrology is a valid science that has been greatly valued for thousands of years. So let's use the resources that we have to make these important decisions. And now it's my great honor to introduce Glenn Kaufmann.
Okay, folks, thank you. This is my PowerPoint presentation here. Old school. So, in astrology, one of the big things, all astrology is it's the study of natural cycles. Dozens and dozens of different cycles. They all have a birth, a growth, a maturation, a seed, death phase, and so on and so forth. That's all astrology is, all right? And it's a recurring period of time, whether it's for an individual, whether it's for a city, whether it's for a new marriage or a new business, an event. All sorts of things have a life, so to speak. And the myriads of cycles that happen is one of the things that astrologers work on. So in 1990, I moved here in 1988, and in 1990 I actually did a lecture in town called The Future of Mount Shasta City, and then I turned the transcript into a booklet and had a whole bunch of different predictions and things, and that's the last copy that I know of at the moment. But with all this stuff, the general plan, the 2045, I mean, come on, they're trying to project 25 years out into the future. And that's what I've been doing for 40 years. That's what we do, right? You know, it's like you look at the cycles, you study history, you look at the combinations, where they're going, the potentialities, the probabilities. That's what this is. It's used now in the financial markets, in psychology, in physics, in mathematics, for the economics, you name it. I used to say, astrology is astronomy brought down into the affairs of men. Actually, that was somebody famous who said that, but I've been saying it. So, and one of the things, the way I want to approach this is I want to give you as much information as possible. So who, what, where, when, and why, okay? And I'll start that way and do that. So the who part is really anything that has a life, whether it's an individual, whether it's a city, again, whether it's some sort of life form. And for the city, now I did a lot of research back in 88 to 90 when I was studying the forecast for the city, and I came to the conclusion that I needed to use multiple charts. I couldn't just use one chart. There was a discovery chart back on Valentine's Day, 1827, although I don't think we had Valentine's Day then, but the guy named Ogden recorded that he saw a mountain that he called Shastis, and it was the first time it had ever been recorded in any sort of white man's history. So that is considered the discovery of Mount Shasta. Of course, the natives knew all about this, had names for it, you name it. But as far as the Western culture is concerned, this is considered the birth chart. And I'll talk about some of the characteristics with that. Now, in 1905, on May 27th, there was a vote whether to incorporate the area. And at 5 p.m., when the votes closed, they counted it the next day, and it was approved. They had incorporated as the Sisson, as the city of Sisson in 1905. All right, so I consider this, because it was the people that voted on this one, that this is the community chart. This is the main one that I like to use the most for Mount Shasta City. All right? Then, in June 5th, 1924, at 8 a.m. in the morning, the day before, the city council had decided that they were going to change the name to Mount Shasta City. And at 8 a.m. on the 5th of June, the post office opened with the new name. It was the only place in town where it had been written down, and so that was the manifestation of what I call the bureaucracy. This was done for politics. This was done for tourism and promotion and so on and so forth. So the three charts for Mount Shasta, okay? And in general, what we have now in the 2020s, all right, 2020 itself had huge amounts of cycles that were stopping and starting again. 3 major cycles, actually. And cycles, the first half of the cycle is the growth phase, the second half of the cycle is the retraction and going to seed phase. In 2017 to 2019, we had 6 closing phases. All the way up until 2020, more than half of all of the energies in the sky were about bringing things to conclusion, bringing things to seed, ditching what we've done over the last 20, 30, 40 years, okay? In 2020, we shifted to 6 opening phases. 3 different phases started anew, okay? So 2020 had 10 times more cyclical response than any other year in hundreds of years. On average, we get a major cycle in astrology about once every other year. In 2020, there was 3 major cycles that caused 5 different conjunctions. So 5 conjunctions in 1 year, 10 times the normal amount. All right? In 2022, we get a Jupiter-Neptune conjunction. That will turn it to 7 opening phases. In 2024, we have a Saturn-Uranus conjunction. That will turn it to 8 opening phases. In 2026, we have a Jupiter-Neptune conjunction. That turns it to 9 opening phases out of 10 major phases that we look at as in astrology, in the big cultural phases, the things that affect people and governments and so on. 90% of everything by the time we get to the middle of the 2020s. And so for a few years now, I've been calling these 2020s the new roaring 20s. And that 2020 itself was the year of the rototiller. That was coming. That was just going to churn up the last 36 years of fear and karma. And Saturn is about restrictions and karma and so on. Pluto is usually about invisible things. So Saturn and Pluto together, the fear that some invisible thing can kill you. It's like when we've had Saturn-Pluto conjunctions in the past 200 years, we've had 5 of them. They always revolve around pandemics and epidemics and where society is trying to clamp down and say, trust us, we'll take care of you, okay? And it's always has to do, Pluto is about power, the power over or the power to, okay? Saturn, Pluto, I said it for a few years now, that what happened in the springtime of 2020 was going to be the putting the toe in the water to test what the world would get away with in order to ask the population what to do. And we got the lockdowns, and we got the this, and we got the that, and then it backed off for a while, and now it's happening again. And I had said, if we don't respond to these things while Saturn is in Aquarius for the next 2 years, that we were going to be stuck with these kind of laws, these kind of restrictions, these kind of passports, these kind of, you name it, until the mid-2030s, even as possibly as late as 2050. Okay, so it's an important time, okay? So in the discovery chart, I want to point out a few things. I don't want to define everything in astrological terms. I'm just going to tell you what we see as astrologers, and you can take my word for it, okay? If you want, you can Google this stuff later on. You'll find a lot of people talk about this stuff. So, discovery chart. One of the things I noticed, okay, we sit on a volcano, right? We have a Mars-Pluto conjunction when this was discovered, okay? Pluto is massive power. Mars is the assertiveness. Mars is lava and fire and so on, and Aries. Mars-Pluto in the 2nd house of value. That's what's important about this area around here, that it's actually a volcano. This is going to blow at some point. It's going to kick out fire. It's going to kick out heat and kill people and so on. And that's just part of the makeup of the chart, okay? The other thing that I thought was interesting, since I didn't have a time of discovery, I did it at sunrise, okay? Because not sun directly overhead, like a lot of people try and do. We're talking about a tangible thing, the land, the mountain, and so on. So we want to be talking about first house stuff, so I put the sun right on the ascendant. But what we have here is the sun in Aquarius, Mercury in Aquarius. All right, Aquarian, I mean, that's the weirdo energy of Mount Shasta, okay? That's the aliens, that's the ships, that's the things in the air, that's the chemtrails, okay? That's, you name it, that's the idea, the University of Mount Shasta, the outside of the box thinking, okay? The outside of the box ideas, information, the idea that we're moving into the Aquarian age. This is great. This is a wonderful place to be doing this, okay? Something else. In this chart, Jupiter is the most elevated planet, okay? Jupiter in an astrology chart, or Jupiter in any chart, is about abundance, justice, legality, righteousness, you know, doing the right thing, truth, justice, and the American way, kind of. It's like a Superman thing, okay? But it rules the Supreme Court. It rules the man-made laws of civilization and working together. And so the idea that Jupiter was the one that was most overhead, and also Venus too, but Jupiter, that's wonderful. If we look at the other charts, Neptune is the one that's most overhead in the community chart. And Neptune is Mother Teresa. Neptune is the spiritual warrior in a way, okay? Now, it's compassion, it's empathy, it's Christ, it's all of this. And so as a community, the idea that Neptune is the most elevated, I love that. I think so. And then in the bureaucracy chart, Mercury is the one that's most elevated. In Taurus, the sign of money, okay? So Mercury, yeah. For the bureaucracy of this chart, the Mount Shasta City chart, this is great. This chart shows somebody who can handle all the details, can make the deals, can all the Mars over here in the 7th. This is the grant writing and the so on and so forth. But it's just, I love it. It's a Venus-Neptune conjunction. Venus is physical love. Neptune is divine love. They're together in the discovery chart. The land around here is about these two things, Venus and Neptune. In Capricorn, Capricorn is the most spiritual sign of the zodiac. It's where even we have it here, 1 foot on land, 1 foot in heaven, okay? The Capricorn goat gets as high up as it can to God, okay? And it helps to bring the energy of God down and manifest it on the physical plane. Read any sort of Alice Bailey stuff and you'll see how importance. And she says, Venus in Capricorn, that's what you want. You know, that's the biggie. Mount Shasta, the discovery of Mount Shasta has that in there, all right? The other thing I like, North Node, that's our spiritual path. That's the soul food of what this area is doing. It's in Scorpio in the house of higher wisdom and higher knowledge and philosophy and the larger questions in life. And Scorpio is about digging down beneath the earth and looking at the ancient stuff, looking at the hidden wisdom, looking at the occult principles. It's really just science, but we don't know how it works yet, okay? But it's magic in a way, but the North Node, our soul food, near the top of the chart in Scorpio, I just think that's wonderful. The thing about Scorpio here, though, there is 2 periods in through here, 2026 and 2032, where that mountain's going to be doing some shaking and rocking and rolling here, and that's part of the chart. That's part of it being on a volcano. That's part of it having Scorpio midheaven, okay? It's going to happen. It's also part of having Saturn down here in the family chart. There are times when it's just hard to be here. It's hard to be creative and playful and abundant enough to be able to stay here. The community chart. As I said, Neptune's the most elevated. Notice this, there's 8 planets on this side, only 2 on this side. When you have the right side of the chart, that is somebody who knows how to work together. They're the managers, they're the ambassadors, there's the moderators. When you have 8 planets on this side of the chart, it means your lessons are about working together. If you had 8 planets over on the left side of the chart, that would be the entrepreneur that starts the business and just tells everybody what to do, and you toe the line. But when you have 8 planets on this side, it's about working together. It's about management. And so as a community, I think this is nice too. All right. Mars is strong in all of these charts. There's Mars, Pluto here, Mars on the ascendant here. Remember, this is the most important one. And this was within 8 minutes that Mars was rising in Scorpio. Here's that Scorpio again. All right. Mars rules Scorpio. Mars is on the ascendant in Scorpio. As a city, we are talking about transforming people in invisible ways. All right, the Scorpio, it's not done externally. It's done internally. It's done with their kundalini energy, their souls, their experiences, their relationships, and so on. Mars on the ascendant like that can be a little scary. This is the bulldogs and the watchdogs that we have in this town that can go to town, and if something's wrong, something's being done improperly, like this general plan 2045, that Mars on the ascendant in the community chart is taking them down. Okay, it ain't gonna happen unless the hidden powers that be are in play. I don't like that in this chart. In this chart of the bureaucracy, 3 planets in Cancer in the hidden 12th house, which is behind the scenes deals, okay? This is taking care of the public, or taking care of your family in a way, the moon in Cancer, but doing it surreptitiously, not telling everybody, not being above board. This is nasty in this part of the chart and through here. This is somebody who would, I remember when I first moved up here, they used to say Mount Shasta was run by 7 Italian families, okay, that, and half of them had been in the mafia, and they came up here and they bought all the property and stuff. And that's mafia stuff, okay? This is backroom stuff, okay? Does have the sun in Gemini, the positive side, in the 11th house. That's great for community involvement, for telling people what to do. But in this case, between the two of these, this is more like lip service, okay? Rather than it is, here's the information, let's get everybody on board. Nope, they instinctively, moon, you instinctively run to protect your ass, protect yourself, protect your family, okay? Something else about this chart. Oh, let me back up to this one a second. The community again. Moon in Pisces in the 5th house. If that isn't an artist and a spiritual community, and 5th house is playfulness, it's the fun house. Pisces is the empath and the mystic and the Christ principle and the I amers and and on the negative side, it's also the pot places and the, being, we're positive, alcohol, you name it, positive, downers, opioids, marijuana, and alcohol are the 3 Piscean cocoon mechanisms. When people are highly sensitive and they're not that spiritually involved and they're trying to protect themselves, they usually do it chemically to try and shut down the information that's coming. All right. When you have more of a spiritual bent or whatever, yes, then there's more of a meditation, Mother Teresa, ascension kind of energy that goes on. But most of the time, people don't realize this is going on, and they do it with the pharmacological issues. I mean, even the whole shamanic journey stuff that goes on up here. It's Pisces, okay? Sun in Gemini in the 8th house, Pluto in Gemini in the 8th house. This community here is knowledgeable when it comes to lawsuits, legalities, will and testaments, business contracts, you name it. You're not going to pull anything over the community with the sun on the 8th house in Gemini, okay? Venus in the 6th house. This is the natal chart for the community, all right? 6th house is the house of service, but it's the house of health. Venus, what you value. In Aries, you do it yourself. You don't let anybody else tell you what's going on. Venus and Aries in the 6th house, people come here because they can heal, and they do it themselves. They don't do it in the classic go to the doctor and take the right amount of prescriptions and so on. That's not. This is Aries. It's a new path. It's the road not taken. It's the Lewis and Clarks of the cosmic world. So self-healing, self-employed, they value independence and service. North Node in the community charts in Virgo, up near the 10th house, almost on the 11th, okay? That's purity, that's keeping your promises, that's perfectionism, that's Virgo energy is like the HR departments of the ancient world. Everybody went to them to get fixed. Fix my family, fix my business, fix my lawsuit, fix my health, whatever. North Node, that's our path. That's the community's path up here, is Virgo energy, all right? Up near the top of the chart, this is one's career. This is the community interaction, the activities, the groups, and so on. But the North Node is where you're headed on a spiritual level. So with the bureaucracy, one of the positive things, 5 planets in this 4th quadrant here. 4th quadrant is the quadrant that has to do with universality, philanthropy, humanitarianism. I always call it the Save the Whales quadrant, right? 1st quadrant down here, self-development, family development, community, and then universality, okay? 5 planets over here. Same thing with the discovery chart. 5 planets in the universal part. You get to the community, it's 5 planets in the community section of the chart. It's like, okay, you can't make this stuff up. This is just, 3 planets in Cancer in the bureaucracy. Like I said, Cancer is that hard shell on the outside and the gooey center. They put up, pardon my French, but I call this the don't fuck with my family sign, okay? But, they will protect at all costs what they have, all right? And so this is the bureaucracy. Here's a distinction that I think is where the current city council is going off. South Node is what we've done before. It's the karma we bring forward into this lifetime. We're good at it. It's easy to do, all right? But if you just do South Node stuff, you're not dissipating your karma. You're not creating new positive karma. You're just enveloping what you have already and riding on the coattails, all right? It's in the 7th, near the 8th house. This is public contracts, this is the grants, this is the legalese and so on when it comes to this city, all right? The South Node is in Aquarius, conjunct Mars, okay? That's a very assertive approach to the gotta go home, we gotta go get it, we just gotta go take it, we gotta take ours, all right? You're not supposed to do that, even though you're good at it, okay? What you're supposed to do, in my teachings and what I understand, is the North Node. That's the soul food. That's the stuff you want to develop. That's what, okay? In this case, it's conjunct Neptune in Leo in the 1st house. That is a spiritual example, is what that is supposed to be. The bureaucracy, the people running this town should be looking, Leo rising, okay? This is the king and the queen. Get up, look, follow us. We have a plan. We have a vision that we want everybody to follow, okay? In Neptune, it's empathic, it's spiritual, it's community, it's epitomizes Mother Teresa and Gandhi and things like this, and the pot shops and the alcohol and everything else, okay? So there is a positive and negative. But it's about the etheric realms, it's about the mystical realms, and it's the North Node. And so we are supposed to learn how to be leaders as a city, as a government, for what? For the rest of the world, in a way. So this is the who. This is the who that I'm talking about today. Who, what, when, where, why kind of thing. The who, the city, all right? The what, okay? What's happening? That's an easy one. It's always change. Change is always happening. It always happens. It's continual. So the what that is happening is changing, and it's about change. And in our case, in late 2024 to early 2026, it's like about a 16, 17 month period, every single planet in our solar system changes signs. Pluto, Neptune, Uranus, Saturn, all the way down, okay? I look back in history as far as I can go, a few hundred years. It only happened one other time that I could find in hundreds of years, and that was in the mid-50s, all right? But, so, do a little study, check out what happened in the 50s and look at the attitude changes that happened, okay? But when a planet changes signs are attitudes. And so when a planet changes signs, you are changing attitudes. All 10 attitudes will be changing over the course of an 18-month period. I'm calling that the grand entrance to the Aquarian age. To me, it's like we look at things now and the resistance that we have and the fear from the COVID and this and that and the other thing. It's like this stuff is going to dissipate big time by the middle of the 2020s. 2021, unfortunately, has 4 squares. That's all that's going on in 2021 is 4 closing squares. Squares is integration. Squares is difficulty. I called this year, when I did the forecast for this year, it was a long, hard slog from January to December. And it's when the seed's trying to grow and it's still trying to break up through the surface. And it's still about, well, we haven't completely let go of everything from the cycles last year. I mean, the 2020 cycles was a 30-year cycle, a 20-year cycle, a 13-year cycle, and an 800-year cycle that all started in 2020. All right? We are shifting in the 800-year period. We're shifting out of the last almost 200 years in Earth signs. These are Jupiter-Saturn conjunctions in Earth signs, which is our capitalism, it's the toys, it's the money, it's the banking, it's all of this kind of stuff. But as of December, we've moved in and stay in for almost another 200 years now. We've now moved the Jupiter-Saturns into air signs. And when you look back through history, through this, when we've had Jupiter-Saturns in air signs, which was last time was late 1100s to the early 1400s, it was when the knowledge from the east spread to the west. It was like the wisdom, the information moved around the planet. That is starting again. It started as of December of 2020 and goes until almost the 24th century. Okay, so changes in attitudes. Pluto's moving into Aquarius. We've never had Pluto go into Aquarius. It was discovered in Cancer. It's never been in Aquarius. And once a planet has become known in the consciousness of society, that's when the planet works best. That's when the energies of those planets is actually incorporated into society the best. Uranus was discovered in the mid-1700s, industrial revolutions and so on, which is Uranus, right? Neptune, roughly the mid-1800s, and that was the spiritualism and everything that started. Pluto, the early 1930s, that's the atomic bomb and all this kind of stuff. And Pluto, power. The power to kill, the power to create, to supersede and so on. I mean, anytime I think of Pluto, I always think of Luke Skywalker in Star Wars. I mean, he goes through a major Pluto transit. And that movie came out when Pluto was going through Scorpio, which is the transformation, the fear of the dark side, slipping into the dark side. Pluto went into Sagittarius, and then we ended up getting, Sag is magic, we ended up getting the Harry Potter themes, all while Pluto was going through Sag. When Pluto went into Capricorn in 2011, what have we been getting for the first few years? I couldn't figure out, okay, what's the major theme that's going on here? Then I realized just like about 2-3 years ago what it was. It's the Superman, it's the superhuman, it's the Marvel movies and the humans that are part gods and so on. And that's literally Capricorn. That's what Capricorn stands for. So Pluto in Capricorn. When Pluto goes into Aquarius in 2024-ish, all right, for almost 14, 15 years thereafter, we'll get a new series of societal things that people want to look up to. And okay, what is Aquarius? That's angels and aliens. You know, it's winged things. Okay, it's the so, you know, somebody coming from another planet or somebody coming from another dimension. Doesn't have to be another planet, but that's Pluto in Aquarius. So we're going to be getting a lot of those. That's when Uranus goes into Gemini in 2025 until 2032. That's when AI is going to become ubiquitous. It's going to be everywhere. Okay, I'm jumping around a little bit, but Uranus cycles is the neat one to watch in astrology because it gives us 7-year periods over an 84-year cycle. Saturn's a little too close. It's only 2.5 to 3 years each and over a 30-year cycle. But Uranus, every time we've had Uranus in Taurus, last time we had it in the late 1930s, early 1940s, now since 2018, I've been screaming this one. It's scarcity, it's supply line disruptions, it's dust bowls, it's hunger, it's poverty, it's all these kind of things. And Taurus is about the commodities in life. Taurus is the comforts in life. Uranus and Taurus, whoop, where are the comforts? What happened? All right, what are they? What are the new priorities? How do we get what we want? You know, not what we need, what we want. Okay, what we need is Uranus and Aries. All right, and the interesting thing, this Uranus cycle, Uranus was in Aries during the stock market crash, which led to a lot of the things in the Uranus and Taurus and the war and the Dust Bowl and the unemployment and this and that. Uranus was in Aries in 2007 and 2008 again, when we had the housing crash and the crisis and the great, what do they call it, the Great Recession or something. All right. Now Uranus is in Taurus, and we're dealing with that. We're having to come up with issues about what is it worth? What is it worth to us? What are we willing to pay for the comforts and the commodities in life? All right. Every time Uranus goes into Gemini, especially for the U.S., it has a major revamping of the boundaries. It gets into wars. And in the 1500s, when Uranus was in Gemini, it was when the Spanish tried to create the first colony in South Carolina area. All right? Then next time it happened was the early 1600s, and that was Jamestown, when they actually did make the colony. All right? Then the next time it happened, Uranus and Gemini, was the Indian Wars. The one after that was the American Revolution. The one after that was the Civil War. The one after that was World War II. All right? And we got the next one coming up in 2026 to 2032. All right? So there's something going to happen. I think that at the least we're going to end up with like the state of Jefferson, or some change in the boundaries of the U.S. Puerto Rico will probably become a state while Uranus is in Gemini, but these kind of things. But we can expect that we're going to be sending boys and women, Gemini in this case, is off to war, to fight wars. Unfortunately, that's the negative side of this. Hopefully, we can kind of nip that one in the bud and make it a short one. This grand entrance that I'm talking about, Pluto goes into Aquarius. All right, I think that's actually the beginning of the Aquarian age. It's the first time Pluto goes into Aquarius. It stays there for quite a while. There's other planets that'll be joining it, right? But Aquarius is about society. It's about the good of the whole versus the good of the individual. That's the Leo-Aquarius axis. Leo is the individual. Aquarius is the good of the whole. If we want to balance out what's happening with Aquarius, we need to remember Leo. All right? So we have to come to some balance about what's best for society, the community, the group, the whole, and without leaving the individuals out, without pulling people down off of their pedestals of respect and honor and issues like this. This is the Leo-Virgo cusp, Leo-Aquarius axis. And it's especially strong in the bureaucracy chart. Leo rising, Aquarius on the descendant. Right. This Jupiter-Saturn conjunction, the main one that we had in December of 2020, started a new 20-year cycle, started a new 200-year cycle, okay? Right on the descendant, right on the area of the city government's chart that has to do with dealing with the public, the population, the image, the promo, it's contracts. The seventh house has to do with the visible contracts that you will do in life so that you don't have to be the one doing everything. This part of the chart is the part we don't want to own. That's why we get married. That's why we make contracts, so that we get somebody to help us doing things we don't want to do. That's in astrology. That's what this is. The ascendant is the things we want to be. All right. The bureaucracy wants to be king and queen. The Leo rising. Okay. They don't want to have to do the community stuff. They just want to dictate. And you guys, I am not saying this because I have a particular opinion about whether the council is doing a good job or not. This is the astrology. Okay? Leo rising needs to be honored, needs to be respected. But they need to do it in a way that they garner respect. Okay? Yogananda had Leo rising. Trump had Leo rising. All right? But Yogananda had the moon in Leo. Trump had Mars in Leo on the ascendant. So Trump was trying to force it, respect me, give me this. And Yogananda had the moon there. It was like, just come and I'll take care of you. And so that's the difference. They're both Leo rising. They both wanted respect, garnered it, got it, in any fashion. But it's always at the detriment of the community. Okay, and so in this case, this Jupiter-Saturn, it's at least a 20-year cycle. All right, what's happening here with our city? We've got this Jupiter-Neptune conjunction in Pisces happening in April of 2022. That's the next big thing after 2020. Okay, and the Jupiter-Neptune conjunction in Pisces hasn't happened since 1854 during the gold rush on the Pacific Northwest. All right, so we are going to get another gold rush, but this time everything's in air signs. All right, except the Pisces conjunction, but the other planets are in air signs. Last time it was in earth signs, so that's why it was physical gold. This time, the things that are coming through this town and the whole Pacific Northwest, all right, is some sort of like spiritual gold. The idea of making this place a spiritual tourism place, this is going to cruise through till the end of the 2030s. All right, that is the cycle that's coming through for the Jupiter-Neptune, for the Saturn-Neptune that happens in 2026. These all peak at the full moon phase, which is halfway through the cycle. So you look like you okay. Oh, okay. All right. Since I'm jumping around, I've already done a lot of these things. All right? In the Mount Shasta charts, in 2020 we had these major conjunctions that happened. All right. In the Discovery chart, the Jupiter, Saturn, the Jupiter, Pluto, all happened in here in the 12th house in the discovery chart. I don't like that one. To me, that says that the things that started in 2020 are, again, these backroom deals. The 12th house is subconscious. You're not even really conscious of why you're doing these things. But to have triggers, a 12-year cycle, a 30-year cycle, and then the intermittent 20-year cycle, all triggering in here on Uranus in the 12th, in the discovery, the ground tables are changing, the water tables are changing, all of this. There's stuff rumbling around in this mountain. In 2026, we'll find out what it is, all right? But it started in 2020, okay? And this is, 12th house is underground stuff. It's the sewers. It's whether we bury the electric lines beneath the surface. It's what people are going to be digging up when they start doing some of these big hotels and motels and the landing and this and that. You wait and watch the stuff that we find that got buried in around here. The woods around here, for the whole Central Valley, all the farmers for over 100 years, they used to bring all of their spare toxins and everything and take them up into the woods and just dump them out in the woods. Just it was an easy way to get rid of stuff. And so it's not as pristine as we think. Maybe right in the city we're okay, but there are a lot of areas out there where I'm looking forward. Uranus and Taurus is going to bring us the inventions that allow us to perceive these kind of toxins, to perceive these kind of pesticides and things like that. And I'm hoping, I'm predicting, that by the time Uranus gets into Gemini in 2026, we will have handheld little objects like Geiger counters that we could point at the organic peppers in the market and stuff and actually read what has been on it, what it's been through, okay? And point it at a plant, to point it at the soil, to point it at a tree, whatever, and to be able to tell. I think this is one of the things. Uranus is about invention, okay? Uranus brings discovery. Aha, you pull the veils back. Suddenly, I see now. It's epiphanies, all right? In Taurus has to do with agriculture and food and money. Uranus and Taurus is the whole Bitcoin thing, all right? I've been saying to people, it was March of 2019, Bitcoin had gone down to like 3,500, and it was Uranus in Taurus. And I was like, okay, folks, buy it, but hold it until Uranus gets out of Taurus at the end of 2025, and then a Bitcoin will probably be worth about $80,000 is what I had predicted. So, you know, and the Mars-Uranus conjunction that we got at the beginning of this year and the Mars square Uranus that we're having, that's one of the things that's driving the Bitcoin stuff up. Now it's coming back down. But if you have any of this stuff, hold it until early 2025, actually late 2024, early 2025, and then you'll get the best bang for your crypto buck. The things that happened in 2020 when it comes to the community chart, okay, it's all in the third house. Everything that's happened in the third house. Third house in astrology is education, okay? The community needs to educate itself. It needs to learn. It needs to go out and understand these zoning laws. It needs to have the watchdogs. We need to take the courses. We need to find the connections out there. Okay, third house is teaching. It's becoming prescient. It has to do with the idea of understanding the game. And so all of these major cycles that will peak, you know, late 20s here, all triggered for the third house. It's back to school time, mostly for the people who live here. They want anything to do. In the bureaucracy chart, everything from 2020 happened in the sixth house and through here. All right, sixth house is the health of the people on the chamber and the council, and that doesn't bode well. Okay, that means there's health issues, overwork, all this kind of stuff. What else? Health and hard work is the way I put it down. You know, I don't think any of these guys expected that they were going to have to be doing the Zoom meetings that they're doing and spending 4 and 5 hours in meetings and stuff like they are now doing. But this is here until the late 2020s. Okay, so if anybody decides to go for the city council or any of that kind of stuff, it's going to be a lot of service, it's going to be a lot of work. It's going to affect your health. You need to make sure that you take care of your health in the process. Now this axis here, from all of this Cancer stuff in the 12th to the 6th, is called the serve or suffer axis. Right? If they are not serving, if the council, the bureaucracy in general, the staff, the commissions, you name it, the consultants, if they are not serving, you're going to suffer. That's how it is. That's that axis. There really aren't 12 signs. There's 6 axes. So Neptune, Mount Shasta's got a real strong Neptune influence also. Mars and Neptune. Okay, but importantly, the where part, who, what, when, where, and why. Okay, the where part. There's a system in astrology, Geodetic astrology system, where you can overlay the zodiac over like the equator, roughly speaking. All right, and the Sphinx is the Leo-Virgo cusp, and 30 degrees east of that is the Leo section of the planet, and that goes through most of Central Europe and part of England and down into Africa, and the 30 degrees east. I said east, it should be west. And the 30 degrees east is the Virgo part, and that's the Middle East, and so on. But you can wrap these 30-degree segments or zodiacal segments around the planet, okay? Aquarius is Hawaii is the only Aquarius landmass, all right? The East Coast, New York, and the banking center is Taurus. The middle of the U.S. is Aries. But the Pacific Northwest, from San Francisco up, LA is Aries, San Francisco up is Pisces. Pacific Northwest, including Mount Shasta, is the Pisces part of the planet. Okay? This is in relation to the planet. All right? Mount Shasta sits at 28.5 degrees of Pisces. It's within 100 degrees from the end of the zodiac, where you started over again in the natural wheel, Aries through Pisces. All right? And on these cusps around the planet, there are these major mystery temples, and like the Sphinx and this and that. Mount Shasta is the end of Pisces. Machu Picchu is the beginning of Aries. The Snake Mounds is the Aries-Taurus cusp. Okay, the Gemini part is in the Taurus-Gemini parts down in South America and so on. And then there's things you can go all the way around the planet. There are these major, ancient earthworks, temples, mountains, spiritual mountain, that have been considered sacred for many years. That's the world zodiac. The Jupiter-Neptune conjunction that we have next year is going to, figuratively speaking, it will be sitting right over Mount Shasta. It happens in Pisces. And it hasn't happened since the gold rush. Last time we had Jupiter-Neptune conjunction, we had the gold rush on the Pacific Northwest coast. We're getting it again next year. And it's going to be, yes, it's going to be an influx of people. And yes, it's all along the Pacific Northwest. It's not just Mount Shasta. Okay? And we need to shepherd it by using the positive side of Neptune. Okay? Whether you want the pot or the alcohol or this or that, fine. Okay? But as far as I'm concerned, the Mother Teresas and the Gandhis and the Lemurians and the spiritual, the Yoganandas and the Ramakrishnas of the planet, this is a place that can be turned into a worldly representation. It already has half that image. As we start a new 13-year Jupiter-Neptune cycle next year, we're going to have 13 years to bring that into fruition for Mount Shasta. And so, where? Here, Pacific Northwest, okay? When we get the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction in Taurus in 2024. That's in Taurus, so that's going to be East Coast issues, okay? And innovation and changes and sudden upsets on the East Coast. When we get the Saturn-Neptune conjunction, that's in Aries. That's in 2026. That's going to be in the middle of the country, okay? That's when the middle of the country, it's either going to go ultra conservative, because Saturn Neptune can be throwbacks to the tradition and the, put the woman in the kitchen and put the the man as a serf, and so that's the negative side. The positive side is it's in Aries. It's a spiritual warrior. Okay, it's about manifesting a new vision of what spirit can be, of what God can be. But Saturn-Neptune cycles, it's like 36, 37-year cycle. I mean, these are 30-year cycles, 20-year cycles. And we're sitting here trying to, we don't even know really what's going to happen from one day to the next. And then the city council is trying to look 25 years into the future. And I'm saying, that's too much. That's too far out. We've got the Jupiter-Neptune next year. That is when we should be doing the visioning of the general plan. That is when we can draw down the proper vision for this place, okay? It peaks or triggers April 2022, all right? And then it's good for 13 years. So if we have a plan together by then, it should be good for 13 years. No longer, okay? Not 25 years. Mm-hmm. Now, the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction that we have in 2024 is in the sign of Taurus. That's innovation. That's when we build the new city. That's when the ideas and all the visions get translated into tangibility, and some of the buildings start to go up. Some of the benefits, financial benefits, start to happen. 2024, okay? I'm going to stop there because I have this all written out in a way, and I don't want to forget something. So when I get there, I'll talk about it. All right?
You have some tea to drink over there.
Is that what that is? It's water, but I could use that. I have half my chart in the third house, and so my lectures are always information dumps, and you have to decipher it later on. So, Uranus, the cycle of Uranus, it's the great disruptor, okay? Whenever it hits something, it's information, it's Edison and Tesla and people like that, the genius, the savants especially too. And it's usually a radical approach. We have it in Taurus now until 2025, and this is a radical approach to farming, a radical approach to the delivery of supplies, a radical approach to what is important anymore, what are the amenities and the comforts that we want now. We're stirring up a 36-year cycle from the past about, no, we can't drag that last 36-year cycle into this new stuff. We have to let go. I was saying, take all this old stuff and bury it out in the backyard and turn it into compost. And then that compost will be what, as we get these 9 opening cycles by the middle of 2026, we'll get this radical new, it makes me think of the flappers and the 2020s, and they were all doing the dancing and everything. And, everybody was happy. The war was over, this or that. So, but we do have our own little version of a war that we're going to have to go through before this happens here. So, Uranus and Taurus, inventions around agriculture, Bitcoin, I talked about that. Scarcities and sudden disruptions, wants versus needs, land values, Taurus land values. Look at how we're hearing all these stories. Everybody's sucking up all of the U.S. Agricultural land, and the farmers are going broke, and this, it's this shift. this Jupiter-Pluto stuff that we had go down in 2020, a Jupiter-Pluto cycle every 13 years is about achievement at all costs. Achievement, it's usually massive amounts of wealth and so on, and it's the power over instead of the power to. All right? Look at what's been going on with the billionaires, how all of the money, how much they've made in less than 16 months now, and how much almost everybody else has lost. Okay, everybody, if you include inflation, So, Earth movements, Uranus and Taurus. That's two. The different earthquakes and things that are going on. Ever since Uranus went into Taurus, there's sinkholes popping up in middle of Mexico City and Florida, here or there. They can't understand it. There's Uranus and Taurus. And I was saying, get earthquake insurance for at least the 7 years while Uranus is in Taurus. All right? Or, if the mountain goes and it causes an earthquake, it's not going to be covered, unless you have earthquake insurance. And even then, if it's because of a volcano, they might try and not cover it. So, other things that Uranus and Taurus has been in the past: electromagnetic anomalies, cattle contagions. Okay, in the past, there's been big die-offs when Uranus has been in Taurus. When Uranus goes into Gemini, and we can look and see, okay, here's Gemini for the discovery chart. That's the 4th house and the 5th house. Uranus and Gemini is going to make this. That's when we get the high rises. That's when we get the parking wars. That's when we get the drone wars. That's all Uranus and Gemini stuff. That's when we get the proper educational schools. That's when we get the proper transportation systems. Okay? It's very likely that they're going to try and stick something along the I-5 corridor besides a road while Uranus is in Gemini. Okay? Whether it's some sort of rail or high speed something or other. But before we get to the mid 2030s, they're going to have it there. I don't see any other place that they can do it. They just don't have the right of ways anywhere else. But LGBTQ integration, Uranus and Gemini, that's going to that's not going to be an issue. By the time we get to Uranus and Gemini, that bias, that bigotry, that intolerance will be pretty much gone. Okay, so when Uranus gets into Cancer, last time Uranus was in Cancer was shortly after World War II, and Cancer rules the home and the homemaker and stuff, and we got electric refrigerators, we got washing machines, we got carpet cleaners, we got all while Uranus was in Taurus. We got all of these inventions that have to do with home and hearth, making things easy for the homemaker. So we've got that coming up in the late 30s and into the 2040s here. All right, and the way I wrote it down is by the time that happens, we're going to have water infrastructure issues, big time, because Cancer, all right? But I actually expect that we will be 3D printing water. But by the time Uranus comes into Cancer, or during that time. Now, I don't even know how that can happen, okay? But the idea of being able to create water out of nothing, or out of the air, or out of the, it'll happen, okay? Uranus in Cancer is also nutrition, protection, especially protecting my family, okay, and conception. All right, Uranus is in Cancer is when you can go shopping to buy the baby in the supermarket because you can pick and choose the brand you want. Uranus in Gemini is when they will finish the tech to do that. Uranus in Cancer is when we will actually have that. All right. It's coming. Uranus in the Mount Shasta charts. All right. In the discovery chart, the Uranus has been cruising through the 3rd house. Okay. That's there are going to be things that we find inside the mountain, under the mountain, in the forest, digging up the sewers, these kind of things. We're going to find a lot of interesting things that was buried here a long time ago. Many, many eons ago, the water used to come up the middle of the Central Valley, almost right up to Dunsmuir. So you could float a ship up to Dunsmuir and then walk the rest of the way to Mount. just think think on that one, okay? Just Pluto. It makes you have to go through life and death situations, but it tempers you, it brings you back, it pulls out your power. The other thing I do need to point out is that Uranus, Neptune, Pluto energies, these are transpersonal energies. They're not things that you can own for yourself. If you do, with Uranus, you go nuts. With Neptune, you turn into the drug addict. With Pluto, you turn into the serial killer or the rapist or something. I mean, but it drags you down. You can't own these kind of planetary energies. You have to do them for the good of the planet or for the good of the society or for the good of, not even the good of your family. It needs to be larger than that. So Uranian energy, the ingenuity that needs to happen here in this town is not just about this town. It's as we can be the Leo. We can be an example, okay? We could of for other cities of how they could do this. Now, I really don't think there's a whole lot of cities that are in our bailiwick when it comes to spiritual centeredness, okay, and the natural resources that we have here. So that might be few and far between, but it's still about being an example. It's still about leading because of the respect, because of the Leo, okay? So let me take some questions. Any questions? You always have these really...
The golden age coming back up, similar to the 1840s.
The late 40s, early 50s, 1854. Yeah.
So I'm working a lot with local indigenous community people about cultural renewal and things like that. And so I'm very knowledgeable about the genocide that happened in Northern California at the same time. And so if this is all golden age coming up, when we go back and we look at that golden age, and you say that there's some similarity there, we're looking at a time also, it was great for European people, but not so good for other people. And it wasn't very good for the earth,
Yeah.
Like right here, Mount Shasta, there were 6,000 Shastans from here to the Oregon border, who in 10 years were reduced to 30.
Yeah. Now, again, the emphasis in the 1800s was on Earth planets, all right?
What?
Earth planets, Earth signs, Earth energy. The Jupiter-Saturn conjunctions were in Earth signs, all right? That is serfdom, slaves, people as property, money, the commodities, capitalism. They were God. That was what was important, okay? Now, true, we are right at the beginning of the air element here. Actually, 1980 to 2000 was when the humanity dipped its toe into the air element again for the first time in almost 800 years. Then it went back into Earth from 2000 to 2020, and now it's back in air. And from 1980 to 20, we got the computers, the internet, all of this kind of stuff. The knowledge can flow around the planet. So what I'm getting at, long story around here, is that last time in the 1850s when this happened, the emphasis was on things and wealth and gold and stuff and tangibility. If you couldn't make me money, you were no good to me. If you were already here and you were in the way of me making money, you're out of the picture. That's Earth energy. We are now in air energy. And air energy is more, what knowledge do you have to share? How do we make money from knowledge? How do we make money from technology? How do we make money? And it's not even about money, really. It's how do we make, I want to say wealth, but I don't mean it as dollars. Okay, it's about connectivity. It's about relationships. The air signs are about working together. You know, utopias, cities, this kind of stuff. So I'm hopeful that this time around that we don't have to deal with as much of the mammon stuff.
Or elimination of competition.
Yeah, the air signs would be more inclusive. It would be more, let's have the, you know, it's more about franchises, or it's more about you fill this part, you fill that part, you fill the part. We all share together. That's air energy. So I'm hoping that happens. One of the things that I had said with this Jupiter-Neptune coming up is that there'd be some major, really well-known spiritual leaders around the planet that would actually move to the Pacific Northwest. And then I also realized later on, it goes, oh, well, Neptune's also Hollywood, too. You know, and so because I had heard that there's like 2 major movie stars recently that just moved to Mount Shasta and a few things. It's like, oh, of course, Neptune, Jupiter-Neptune conjunction. You know, we're going to have these, Neptune is this illusory figure that you know, the Marilyn Monroe or the John F. Kennedy or something. There's this aura about them. It's not even real. It's a Neptune thing. It's a vision, a visionary thing. Those kind of people are going to be coming here. More of them, okay? And hopefully, again, it's not the, you know, the alcohol king or the pot king or the you know, the queen of the Quaaludes or something. It's so, I mean, that's part of it too, that you always have the good and the bad. You never just have one or the other.
So, Pluto is going to be changing signs soon. How do you think that's going to affect everything?
Well, Pluto's been in Capricorn.
Right, it's going to go into Aquarius.
Okay, but it's been in Capricorn since like 08. It goes in late 2023, and by the end of 2024, it's in for good. Okay, but Pluto in Capricorn was business, and just look what happened to big business, small business, the different governments with Pluto in Capricorn. I had been predicting way back before Pluto got in Capricorn that I had felt that by the time Pluto got out of Capricorn in 2024, that corporations would lose their personhood. Yay. That they would be held, they wouldn't be considered a person, that the people that are in the corporation would be the accountable ones. You don't have this buffer in between the people and the judiciary or the law. And so I'm still keeping my fingers crossed about that. There's this movement that has been going on ever since like 2006 is when it started, where various areas around the planet are making it a big business free zone, you know, or places where large corporations, unless they jumped through certain hoops, they were not allowed to actually build in those cities or whatever. There's like about 300 different places around the earth now that have that, where they wrote it into their zoning codes. You know, they wrote it into their charters and their property owners association things and so on. It's Pluto in Capricorn. I still have the article when I first saw it. It's the transformation of business. Pluto. Capricorn rules business, Capricorn rules government, especially long, big, standing traditions. But in general, Capricorn is business. And so Pluto is going to rototill the whole concept of business, the whole concept of who it is, how it works, how it's going to take place. Right?
So doesn't that seems like that would be definitely something to take into the whole 2045 plan of Mount Shasta.
Right. The big thing that we have to be should be projecting is Pluto in Aquarius. Because Pluto goes in Aquarius in like two and a half years. By 3.5, it's in for 15. And so the plan should evolve around Pluto in Aquarius. Now, Aquarius rules society, it rules community, it rules how the organizational structures are set up. Even the concept of the definition of a city, what is a city, all of that will change. The whole concept of it takes a village, the village part is going to dissolve, it's going to disappear. The idea that we have zones or borders or inclusion zones or annex zones or things like that, that's all actually all going to go up in smoke in a way, and so we can't, Pluto in Aquarius, there needs to be a higher law or a higher set of standards. It's not a general plan. It shouldn't be general, for one, okay? It should be a plan, but it should be very specific. And with Pluto in Aquarius, we need to remember the Leo part, right? I've been saying for years, Aquarius, the Aquarian age is very, very cold. It's the person that'll step over the bum to feed the whales, because it's like people don't count. It's this grand picture, this utopia that counts. If you're not playing the game, you're out of the game. You don't get taken care of. You don't get the universal pay. You don't get the safety nets. You don't get the food stuff. That's going to be Pluto in Aquarius. A lot of people are going to be sitting on the sidelines if they haven't figured out how to do it themselves. So, I'm not so sure that answered your question well enough.
Well, it just feels that all of these city council meetings and planning meetings, and all, it really is kind of, I think people have mentioned the cart before.
It is.
We're really kind of like rushing this.
Yeah, that was the
time of endings instead of the time of beginnings.
That was the Jupiter-Pluto. A lot of this stuff was under the Jupiter-Pluto, the 3 Jupiter-Plutos we had in 2020. That's where this stuff all really got put in place and got, behind the scenes again. Just it wasn't done out in the public where they took the 9 months off or whatever it was. All right, but I lost my train of thought when I was going there. That Jupiter-Pluto peaks in 2026. The Jupiter-Pluto conjunction is in 2020. Halfway through is 2026. That's when we would deal with the fruition and the fallout. If this stuff goes through, if this plan goes through, by 2026 we're going to be going, oh, what did we do? Because it will then be extremely obvious why this is happening like this, why it's being pushed through. And it has to do with this side of the chart. When it comes to the city government, the Jupiter, Pluto, and all this stuff was in through here. And it's like they want somebody else to come in and do it for them, is really what it means when you have triggers going on this side of the chart. It's the consultants, it's the other people, it's the Portland and the Minneapolis plans, and how can we make that apply to Mount Shasta. It shouldn't be from out there in the world. It really needs to be from the Leo and the people standing up, the different people getting on stage and so on. So the Saturn-Pluto, the big rototilling thing that happened last year, the peak of that, the full moon phase of that, is the late 2030s. All right? That's the extreme farthest out that we should be going with any sort of plan for any city, anywhere, okay? Because there's just too much change happening in between that. And unless you want to have to go in and downgrade, which they say you can't do, or change things that have been set in stone for 15, 20 years, it's much harder to amend and add to it than it is to take what has been structured and built and so on and chip away at it. So I'm definitely in the zone of wait, where we're not even in the visioning part. Once Jupiter will go into Pisces the middle of May, so all through the end of May and June until the end of July. That is when we as a community need to get on board with the vision part. All right, that's when Jupiter steps its toe into Pisces. Let's see what we can get away with. Let's see what we can do, okay? And then come January of 2022 and all the way through 2022, Jupiter stays in Pisces and makes that conjunction to Neptune and so on. But we have from the middle of May to the end of July for us to bring down that vision and turn it into something that can be communicated in a legal way, Jupiter, all right, and Neptune with some sort of spiritual component to it, some sort of compassion, or whether it's homeless people or not. I mean, come on, all right, the compassion, all right, that's Jupiter, Neptune. To do this now, we would be shooting ourselves in the foot. Is really what would be happening. The middle of the 2020s, we'd be stuck. Other questions? Anybody?
You mentioned something about Uranus in Taurus, 2026.
Until 2026. It's in Taurus now. It's been there since the spring of 2018 till pretty much 2025. So by 2026, it's in Gemini.
So I heard earthquake insurance, so I wondered when it's a good time for that.
3 years ago. Up until 2026. Okay. I saw that coming. I said, it's sinkholes, it's things falling, it's mudslides, it's actually, Now, this Jupiter and along that lines, Jupiter and Pisces. Okay, what is Jupiter in mythology? Who was that? It was Thor. It was Zeus. What's he known for? Lightning bolts, lightning and thunder in the sign of Pisces, torrential downpours. All right. I am wondering if the middle of May till the end of July, if we are going to get massive amounts of thunderstorms in through here, and next year too. All right. And, well, the kind of rain that you get with Pisces is intense drenches, and then it goes away, and then very little of it goes into it all goes to the ocean. Okay, it goes to the Pisces part. It doesn't take the time to trickle in. Okay, so as far as wildfires are concerned and things like that, Jupiter in Pisces, and Jupiter conjunct Neptune in Pisces next April, this is going to be a very, very wet spring next year. That's my guess, or projection. So, But thunderstorms, there's going to be a lot of lightning.
I love lightning.
Yeah.
As long as it's wet.
Jupiter's in charge now. As of last year, it was the Jupiter-Pluto conjunction, all right, Jupiter-Neptune in 2022, Jupiter-Uranus in 2024, all right. Jupiter hit all of the outer planets in 6 years and half its cycle, from 2020 to 2024. That's a lot of Jupiter energy. And so read up on what Jupiter is, what the symbolism of Jupiter. It is expansion, okay? It is opportunity, it is legality, it is social justice, It's all of those things. And it's also biting off more than you can chew. Okay, Jupiter, Pluto in 2020 with this whole general plan, they are going way too big. Jesse Zapfi was talking about the idea of real estate. You go big, okay, and she's saying, yeah, you go big, you can always go back. With the Jupiter, Pluto, they just went way too far than necessary. And if this were to go through, it would kick us in the butts in 2026. So now, California, in general, the California chart, that became a country 1848. All right, right? State, right? State, yeah. The way I looked at these conjunctions, the 2022, 24, 26, 2032, in the California chart, and here's what went down. The Jupiter, Saturn, and all the stuff in 2020 was in the second and going into the third house for California. That's assets. That's money. That's bills. That's you have the checkbook out. You're spending lots of money. You're doing, values are changing. Priorities are changing. The things that you get to hold as your priority are changing for the California as a state. The Jupiter-Neptune that happens in 2022 happens on the fourth house cusp going into the fifth house. Okay, that is a spiritual resurgence again for California. Okay, that especially going into the fifth, that the creativity, the playfulness, the fun, so on. The Jupiter-Uranus that happens in 2024 in Taurus happens in the sixth house, which is going to be medical insurance, health, food, agriculture, all these kind of things are going to become major. I'm hoping it's regenerative agriculture come 2024. All right. But the big one that I really is the Saturn Neptune at 1 Aries. 1 degree of Aries is the start of a huge cycle. Okay. Anytime, we get a Jupiter Neptune in Pisces, all right? The next time we have the Jupiter Neptune 13 years later, it's going to be in Aries. 13 years later, it'll be in Taurus. It'll take 13 times 12 years to come all the way back around, 156-year cycle. So all of these things don't just happen in a vacuum. They're as part of these larger cycles. Jupiter Neptune at 1 degree of Aries is starting a hundreds of year long cycle that has to do, and for the state, it's in the fourth going into the fifth. It's freedom, the revolutionary, that's when the Jefferson state stuff, that's probably when California has to give up part of its land to the state of Jefferson and so on.
What year is that Saturn Neptune?
2026. Okay.
Didn't you say 2026 is the time to learn a lot more about the water stuff?
Yes. Yeah. 2026 has a lot of water issues going on at that time too.
So I've had this discussion lately with other people. So the state of Jefferson is a right-wing conservative movement, and the state of Cascadia is a liberal, progressive state, more environmental. And it seems like that's a lot more Aquarian than the state of Jefferson.
Yeah.
The state of Jefferson is like, I don't know my science well that, but it seems like Mars more, like the hardcore.
Now, I'm using them as an example because I don't know about the state of Cascadia or any other plan to make a new.
Cascadia is very interesting. It's like the complete opposite.
Oregon.
Yeah.
Oregon?
Yeah.
Now, it makes me think.
Is probably what you might describe it as Cascadia. You can Wikipedia.
Okay.
Yeah.
It makes me think of, immediately I flash on Uranus and Gemini, and it's like, can you have two states within the same state? I mean, how do you side by side the masculine and the feminine? That's what Gemini is. Uranus is going to spend 7 years in Gemini. pretty soon, the second half of the 2020s and into the 2030. So it'd be interesting if how can that happen? How can you have two places inside of the same physical place?
Where you're describing the Siskiyou County right now.
So that sounds feasible, but the state of California, the state of the country, or the boundaries of California, the boundaries of the country will be changing pretty radically in 2026. Yeah, but it's both for the U.S. chart and both for the California chart. So what else? I think much of this stuff I've already gone through. I just have it laid out in a lot of... So the takeaway I want you to have when you leave here is to think of how the next few years are going to play out. All right? We had this rototilling that took place in 2020. All right? In 2022, we get the new vision, the Jupiter, Neptune, and Pisces. Okay? In 2024, that's when we can bring that vision down into tangibility. That's the Jupiter, Uranus, and Taurus. That's when the inventions happen, when they can be manifested in physical form. All right? And then 2026, the Saturn, Neptune in Aries, that's revolution. Early Aries, Saturn is the old, Neptune is the high, Saturn is the dark, Neptune is the light. You put the two together at the beginning of Aries, it can be the spiritual warrior on one side, and it can be massive indoctrination. And what else did I call that? I had a really good name for that when I was thinking on this stuff. It is misdirection. But the positive side is faith and belief that it doesn't have to be tangible. It can be in Aries. It's new. 1 degree Aries is very raw Aries energy. It's the beginning of the zodiac. We're starting a hundreds of years long new cycle that has to do with Saturn drawing down and making tangible Neptune, spirit and metaphysics and other realities and love. Pisces, actually, one of the highest sides of Neptune is divine love. So Saturn and Neptune together. I like that. I do think that there are going to be a lot of people. The way I've explained this in the past is America, or the world in general, has gotten really soft. They don't have to go through the winter with their own food, or battle natives or Indians or whatever because you're out in the middle of nowhere. It's all this on-demand society, Oh my gosh, I lost 1,000, followers on TikTok or whatever. They go commit suicide. What the heck? That Saturn Neptune is going to toughen people up again, and unfortunately for the U.S., it's going to involve a draft. I was saying, I think Biden's the one that's going to implement the draft in 2024-ish to be ready for the stuff that happens going into 2026. So there's always good comes with the bad, I guess. But 2021. Let's put 2021 in perspective here. All right, 4 squares. That's it. There's nothing else going on all this year. There's some eclipses. The eclipses are in the Gemini-Sag axis, which is education, it's the schooling, it's the Supreme Court. We're going to have 13 people or 9. The eclipse is going on Sag Gemini. Gemini is how you learn. Sag is what you learned. Okay, they started triggering the fall of last year. They go all through this year. The eclipses, they're 18 and a half year periods. They won't come around again in Sag and Sag again until 18 years from now. All right, so the idea of accountability to education and freedom. Sagittarius is about, it rules horses and fast things and shooting arrows way up into the sky. It's unfettered. It's fire energy. It's spread with wildfires. You know, Sag energy doesn't like being pinned down and whatever. Even the Sag-Gemini axis is, in astrology, it's known as the worst for monogamy, you know, because they just don't want to be pinned down. There's this, you know, so, but that whole Sag energy. Okay, I'm going to jump topic here. Mercury retrogrades. Okay, all the Mercury retrogrades that we have this year are in air signs. Okay. Next year, they're in air back into Earth, and then the year after that, they're in Earth, and the year after that, they're in water, and then water into fire, and then fire. And so these Mercury retrograde cycles cycle through their own, too. It's not every 3 months you get a Mercury retrograde, but it's like something like every 8 years or so, you get Mercury retrograde coming back around to the same place that it was happening. All right, but air signs. This is, from a Mercury retrograde point of view, this is name calling, okay? This is information, this is research, this is fact checking, this is watchdogs, this is, you know, somebody says they're going to do something, you have the watchdogs come in and make sure that they're doing what they said they did, you know, all 10 pieces that they said they were going to do, not 2. You know, this is Mercury retrograde in air. Rethinking things, formulating things, and so on. Excellent for planning a vision. Not so good for executing it. Yeah, you know, that should be the earth signs, which is coming. You know, that's 22 and 23. And all these different cycles, every time I look at them, it just all says, wait, you know, wait till at least we will get the vision next spring. Not this spring. We're a year ahead of time. What we should be doing is deciding what we don't want anymore, not what we do want. Okay, what things from the old plans in 2007 and 2010, what of those no longer fit anymore? You know, and if so, let's just decide that, let's contemplate what happens if we take those away. Not contemplate what happens, what we put in its place. Okay, we will have a short period, end of May, June, and July, where we'll have some really good ideas of what can go in its place, but we shouldn't even think of solidifying that vision until April of 2022. All right, and then 2025 and 2023 and 2024. That's when the developers come in and go, hell yeah, I'll build this, I'll do that, I'll do this. And so you watch and see how much growth, tangible physical growth happens in 2023 into 2024, and even into 2025. Probably the landing or whatever, you know, we'll start to see. And with Jupiter Uranus, it's going to go fast, it's going to go big as far as the building is concerned, not big buildings. Okay, but so now 2021, so the Mercury retrogrades, think on that. One of the things that happens this winter, all right, is we get Venus retrograde, okay, in Capricorn. But the important thing is it conjuncts Pluto 3 times over the course. Twice in December and once in February of 2022. And so the Venus retrograde this time gets hammered by Pluto. Okay, and the way I had put it in one of my posts at one point is, over this winter, Venus is screaming about being stalked by Pluto and fearing for her life as she's going through this winter. Okay, but Venus, it's in Capricorn. And so that's the final nails in the coffins of the big businesses, the governments, the whole thing that started crashing with the 2020 Jupiter, Saturn, Pluto in Capricorn. We get a Venus triple conjunction to Pluto in Capricorn. It's like one of the last big things that Pluto does before it leaves. It chases Venus around for a while. And that is a sudden decrease in value in the stock market. That's a sudden decrease in value in business. People like companies like Amazon and things like that, they're going to have to, like they're doing this fight now with the whole idea of being able to unionize because they have to stand for 10 hours and they don't get breaks and all this kind of stuff. Amazon has got Mars and the moon in Gemini in its natal chart. It's very good at picking up on what the signals are of what's coming in the future. And so they are going to, under this Jupiter-Neptune, they are going to seize the narrative by becoming the compassionate corporation. Okay? They're going to, had the union won and gotten this vote that just went down, they wouldn't have had to do it. But because they lost, this narrative is going to be going through, and that's the only thing they can do. If they want to have people not revolt against the idea of getting from Amazon, they're going to have to step up to the plate and show some of that compassion that's going to come through in 2022. And they're going to know how to use it. They're going to dribble out a bunch of things and say, yeah, we're going to give our employees this and we're going to give them that, and look how great we're doing for you. Watch. And it's not just Amazon, it's the big super corps, the Walmarts and the this and the that and the other thing. They're all going to come on board and say, oh yeah, that's right, our employees, we care. We want to take care of them, you know. But it's only because the winds are flowing that way, and they know how to read the winds. I'm always stating this. I thought it was John D. Rockefeller. I've had a few people correct me and say, no, it was J.P. Morgan. But the story goes, a reporter asked one of those millionaires, do all millionaires use astrology? And they answered, no, but all billionaires do. You know, so it's a tool. That's what it is. So 2021, it's a hard year. It's an irritating year. We got to keep at it. Like I said, it's a long, hard slog. I did my forecast for 2021 on January 2nd, and I predicted the January 6th stuff, and it's on there. You can tell. And I predicted there would be a second one at the end of June, going into early July. The first one was the Mars-Uranus conjunction on the 6th. This one coming up is going to be the Mars-Uranus square, okay, at the end of June. And so you watch, there's going to be a whole bunch, everybody's going to be going, oh, you're taking this away from me. We can't have that. You know, we're going to try and take it back. So, more questions? Yeah, it starts at the end of, well, the Mercury retrograde starts at the end of May is the next one. Of June. Yeah. So right. Yeah. So, I haven't talked about one of the things that's happening in 2026. The who, what, when, where, the why part. Okay. Why in astrology is been something that people have been asking for ages and ages. And astrology, the tarot, these kind of things, the answers have all been sequestered into the symbols, into the teachings, into the mystery schools, and so on. The why parts, okay? But in astrology, the why has to do with the definition of the planets and the transit patterns that happen in the sky. The grand crosses, the kites, the grand sextiles, the T-squares, and all these different major configurations that happen. Well, in July, for 9 days in the July of 2026, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto form what I'm calling a mystic bowl. All right, all of them are they're all in trines and sextiles to each other, and they fill up half of the chart, and they form a bowl. Okay, and for most of the summer, but especially these 9 days, at two hours before sunset, through the middle of July in 2026, that bowl is facing up into the sky. And it is like, and bowls, the crescent moon, the symbolism is about capturing knowledge. Is about things being poured down. And you think of the Aquarian angel, is pouring out the stuff on the planet. That's when we as a society, why are we doing this? That is when we are going to see a change. Remember, all these changes, these attitudinal changes are going to be happening by the time we get to the spring of 2026. All right, that's the big thing. From the fall of 2024 to the spring of 2026, every planet changes signs. Okay, all the attitudes are going to be changing, whether it's cultural, whether it's judicial, whether it's psychological, whether it's sexual, all of it. They go through these societal changes. And then right after that, there's this mystic bowl. That's what I'm calling it. There's this mystic bowl situation where a bowl wants to be full. That's what they're about. You fill it up, you put it in. It's for food, it's for drink, it's for water, it's for nourishment. And so there's this mystic bowl that happens in the summer of 2026 that I think is the part that I really am hanging my hat on, that this stuff will happen. And I'm assuming that any wars and any drafts and things that the U.S. happens, the summer of 2026, bam, it stops. They cut it short. They're done with it. They bring everybody home. It's going to be a short thing. It's like a 9-month to 11-month period of people dying for our country. But I think the general tenor of the population is going to go very mystical by 2026, where they're just not going to allow it. And Chiron, by the way, Chiron sits right at the bottom, at the base of the bowl in 2026. And so Chiron is all about, healing the wounds, those scabs that we've come into this lifetime that we just keep picking at all our lives. And so Chiron is the base of the bowl. And so it's about healing. It's about healing. It'll be in, what's that?
Will it be in Taurus?
Yes. Yes. Yeah, Chiron and Taurus. I put the bowl on the back. So that's pretty much, I mean, I went completely different than I wanted to, but that's pretty much what I wanted to say. I guess I should do a little promo and remind everybody every second Wednesday of the month, I have an open house here. People can come inside, or over the summer it'll probably be outside too. It'll be a little warmer than this,
There was nothing inside for a while.
Yeah, I was having them inside. I just wasn't promoting them very much, because I didn't want to have.
Socially distant.
I had people coming up to me and saying, "You were open? You were bringing people in?" And I said, "Yeah." But it was like one of the reasons I set this up. Okay, one of the reasons I moved to Mount Shasta was because of some of these things that are coming up, some of these things that were happening, You know, oh God, we're going to lose our books. Oh God, we're going to lose our privacy. You know, these kind of things. It was back in the 1980s, I was looking at that and going, you know, so moving up here was part of that. And there is, I wanted to set this place up. And I feel like all I do is I just turn the light on in the front of the house. And it's like, you know, just put a light out. It doesn't matter. I don't have to promote it. And I thought, whoever comes, whoever walks in the door is the right thing, you know. And very interestingly, I've been 3 times busier than I ever have in my whole life since last year. You know, so anyhow, any questions? Other?
So Glenn, do you see like any healing for like the divisiveness that's happened over the last period of time for people? Is there
right now we're doing
indication of coming together?
no. This is a steamroller thing. We have to step over them and do what's right. You're not going to get everybody on board. Okay, not right now. Not until past the Venus-Pluto conjunction this winter, and not until the springtime of next year. And so really it's more about the numbers, you know. How many people are going to stand up? How many people? One of the things in my forecast for April, I called it enough is enough. I even talked about how I just reread it again today, and I go, holy shoot, this is the general plan. And I put this out at the end of March. And, you know, and it was like, you got to go in and do it yourself. If you want it done right, you do it yourself. You don't contract it out. You don't leave it to even the staff or the city council or whatever. You use leverage and you make it happen the way it should happen. Just lastly, all of the triggers for the community chart are about dealing with the public, okay? All of the triggers for the bureaucracy chart is about what is the legacy that they want to leave. It's not about the importance of the community. It's about the reputation, the image that they are able to carry around having been one of the people who do this. It's about Taurus, and Taurus is about, oh, give me, I want it, you know, not you, give me more. And that's not the way to do this. At least not until next year, not until we get the vision down. So I guess last word is we need to scrap the plan.
So did you read Tim Stern's letter last week to the editors? He kind of laid it out, talking about, you know, you only do it every 5 or 7 years or something, and you take the old one and review it, and before you, and
yeah, I didn't read them. I still have them inside. I haven't read them, but
I would say that he lays it out pretty clearly. I was surprised. Yeah. You might find.
So, Glenn, is this going to be available on your website? Can we like? Will
Yeah.
there be a link that we can kind of like put on next door?
oh yeah.
Because it's, I think.
Yeah, I'm gonna make a copy, and I'm gonna send it to everybody on the council. I'm gonna send it to, you know, it's like, okay, how long is it? It was, you know, but sorry, it's, you know, you sit for 4 hours in a meeting, take a little bit and study this.
See the why.
Yeah,
Very important. Thank you so much.
yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.